I'd like to kick this off with a video. It's a way for us to think back 30 years to 1990 and what it means to grow for 30 years here in Lincoln and Lancaster County. Because what we're charged with doing here is looking forward 30 years to 2050. And you'll notice in the video and some things that we talk about tonight and how much things change in 30 years. So with that, I think we'll get the video going. And then I'll come back up and we'll continue to have a conversation. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
You've got mail.
Hypercolor clothing changes color with heat.
It's easy to squeeze your way to shapely hips and thighs.
Schlesinger has another touchdown.
That'll do it. Nebraska has won the national championship.
I've declared a general state of emergency.
3, 2, 1, happy 2000!
Play ball.
I didn't know what Facebook was. It sounds like a huge waste of time.
Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
Where the deer and the antelope play.
Maybe you can drive my car. Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle.
A lot has happened over the last 30 years. What's in store for the next 30? By 2050, there will be over 100,000 new residents in Lancaster County, with the majority of those in Lincoln. A more diverse population with new needs and wants, a changing climate that will require a more resilient and sustainable community, new transportation options, new housing solutions, smarter connected cities, and who knows, maybe there will be flying cars or self-aware robots. All these things are possible, so how do we ensure that Lincoln and Lancaster County have the best future? Plan Forward is the theme for the Lincoln-Lancaster County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. A comprehensive plan establishes the community vision. What do we want for Lincoln and Lancaster County over the next 30 years? And provides a roadmap for achieving that vision in topics such as land use, economy, housing, transportation, health, and sustainability. Plan Forward will be a forward-thinking document to guide the community to a thriving, resilient, innovative, and livable future. At the same time, we'll be updating our long-range transportation plan to provide a detailed analysis of the community's transportation needs. This plan is a community effort, and we need your help. Visit planforward2050.com to take the visioning survey, learn more about the comprehensive plan, and sign up for the mailing list. All right, so I cannot play the guitar. I've been asked that several times this evening already, so don't anticipate that happening, but maybe a goal of mine by the end of our process is to actually learn how to play the guitar. So that'd be good. So obviously a lot changes over 30 years. When you look back to 1990, there's an awful lot of things that take place. And when it comes to planning, it's something that we want to be aware of, that when we look that far into the future, we know that things are going to change. And so what we want to do is have a community conversation about what our community's needs will be, what we need to make sure happens, and then give it some context and some way to talk about what we want our community to become over a long period of time. So through this presentation, what I'm going to do is kind of give you a little bit of kind of thinking points about this to kind of set the stage for our process. So let's think back 30 years to 1990. So the first web server was created in 1990, the beginning of the World Wide Web. And you think about how much has changed just because of that one advancement in technology over the last 30 years, how different our lives are because of that. Keep in mind on technology there for a moment, How many of us have a mini computer in our pockets right now, or holding it in our hands? 1% of the population back in 1990 had a cell phone, not a smartphone, but a cell phone. So those types of things can really change. So think about what 2050 will look like in the future. Things like the unification of East and West Germany took place at that point. Mikhail Gorbachev won the Nobel Peace Prize. Home Alone, the first one, was the #1 movie. I graduated from high school, and it's not a big deal for all of you, but for my parents it was a big deal. But the point is that my entire adult life has taken place since 1990. So that is a significant amount of time, over 30 years. So it's exciting, and it's also a little bit daunting to think of it that way. So what you see on the screen today is a map of the city of Lincoln. And what is in blue is what the city limits were in 1990. And what you see in the darker gray is all the areas that the city has annexed into the city over the last 30 years. So there's some significant land area, and a lot has happened since then. And so to put it in perspective, we were a city of about 193,000 back then. And so we have grown by almost 100,000 since then. And to give a little sneak peek into the future, our projections are telling us that by 2050, we're going to grow by another 100,000 people in the city. We're going to grow by about 120,000 total in the county, for Lancaster County. So those are significant numbers. And you think about how much we have changed since 1990 with that growth. We're going to do it again in 30 years. So let's think about how we want that to happen. A couple other things is to keep in mind that back in 1990, there were 4 high schools. We've built 2 new ones since then. We're taking a vote right now to build 2 more. So that gives you an idea of a little over 30 years, we will have potentially doubled the amount of high schools we have here in Lincoln Public Schools. There was no Fallbrook to the north side of our community, and there was no South Point to the south side. So those of us like myself who didn't move here until about 20 years ago, I don't know this community without those major physical items on the north and south side. So it is very interesting to look back and then to look forward. And it may seem like a very long time ago, but Tom Osborne was still 4 years away from his first of 3 national championships. So hopefully we can get back to that over the next 30 years as well. So what is the comprehensive plan? What you see here on the screen is the cover of our current plan. It's the 2040 plan. This plan was created back 10 years ago in 2010. And it was the current kind of conception of what we are planning for. And at that time, of course, that was 30 years into the future. So now we've had 10 years of experience with that plan, and we're going to update it again. But this is really the vision of our community. It sets forward what we think and what we want to be into the future. It's at least a 20-year vision. We're going to be doing a 30-year vision. This is a combined city and county plan. So the planning department is both for Lancaster County and for the city of Lincoln. And we also do coordination efforts with all the small towns and villages and smaller cities. So it really is a complete community plan. So what's really unique about Lincoln and Lancaster County is that from a planning perspective and a lot of other ways, we do have that concept of being one community, and it really is an important part of that. So the one community concept is something that's very strong here in our community right now. It has been for many decades, and we anticipate that to continue. And some of the principles of that are that what we have is a vision that is a major city in the center of a very large county. And what that does is it allows us to kind of think of ourselves as one. And that is a very strong, powerful tool that we have in an aspect of our community. And a big part of that is the fact that we have one large public school system for the city of Lincoln in the LPS. What we do with that is that the LPS school district expands when the city expands. And so we don't have competing school districts. It's a somewhat unique aspect to our community, and it's a very big strength of our community. We also tie annexation to our urban services, so water and sewer in particular. You see our Teresa Street water treatment plant on the image up there. And so infrastructure is a really big part of what we talk about with a comprehensive plan, and we will do that in this process as well. And a lot of this is really meant to provide predictability for the private sector and for the public sector. And that's important because by doing that, it allows a lot of different aspects of our investments in this community to be efficient and to not be wasteful for our infrastructure investments. So now we look to plan forward to 2050. 10 years is a big deal. Basically what that tells us is that of that 120,000 people that we know or expect to grow to by 2050 from today, by adding 10 years, that's adding 40,000 more people to our horizon year. So that's a significant amount of impact on our community. So we have to be really thoughtful about how we want to do that. The county will have about 440,000 people by 2050. Today it's about 320,000, so that's that 120,000 more people. Lincoln will grow from approximately 290,000 people to over 395,000 people. So that is a significant jump for our city, the major city. And we put the Jetsons up there not because we think we're going to have flying cars, but to just keep in mind that how much are we going to change, and how is it that we should or want to change, or perhaps how we have to change in order to be the type of community that we want to be. We have 4 themes. We have resilient, innovative, livable, and thriving. These themes for this effort are going to help us define the conversations that we're having. We want to be the type of community that attracts people and retains people, and we want it to be efficient too. For resiliency, this is a very important topic that we will get into with this process. And there are a lot of different aspects to this, but we want to make sure that we are committed to a strong foundation for generations to come by promoting resiliency, sustainability, and security of infrastructure and built capital. We only have to look back to last March to have this topic really make its presence known here when we had our water supply threatened with the flooding. We have our well fields up in Ashland and off the Platte River, and while we were successful in protecting that and we did not have anything worse happen, in fact, here we were here in Lincoln and Lancaster County, the flooding was not quite as significant as other parts of the state, but it was still very significant, and it did threaten our water system and our access to fresh water. That is just one example of how we might need to make sure that by 2050 we're talking about how are we going to make sure that we're meeting the needs of a growing community. And a second water source, as has been discussed publicly, is something that comes out of that. And there are many other topics of resiliency that we'll get into. Innovate. So technology really comes into play here. So there's an awful lot of change that has happened and will continue to happen. I think one interesting topic about this area, amongst many others, is we've had a community conversation about smart vehicles, smart cars, perhaps driverless vehicles. And that is just one example of kind of how might our transportation system change over the next 30 years. And it does not mean that it's going to guarantee that that happens, but it's one of those areas that we need to have that conversation. Because if we don't have that conversation, we won't be prepared for it, or we might miss some opportunities along the way. So that is why we want to make sure being innovative is a big part of our discussion here. Livable. This is a very long-standing concept for comprehensive plans and for planning in general, but it's extremely important, and we're going to continue to have this conversation. We want to make sure that this community in the city of Lincoln and in the county and in our small towns and villages is a place that is inviting so that people can make sure that they can live their lives in a secure way. And one topic area that really comes out of this that's a very important current topic is the quality and affordability of housing. That's something that we are currently studying, and we want to have that discussion with this effort. So being livable in our neighborhoods and our community is very important. And thriving. This is the fourth of our themes. What this is really getting to is that we want all members of our community to have success. We want to make sure that the types of jobs for the 21st century are here in Lincoln and Lancaster County. And how do we change along the way? There's always that information out there that says the jobs of tomorrow don't exist yet. So the majority of our jobs today will not exist in 2030. So we always have to be evolving, and part of that is making sure that our economy is strong. And this ties back into all these other themes. So to have a strong economy for the long term, you have to be resilient in your economy. So getting all these themes tied together, we want to have that conversation along the way as well. So to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing, so right now, this is really the formal kickoff of the big ideas. We're going to take a few months to make sure that we're asking the community for your ideas, your input. Tonight's a part of that. If you haven't taken part in our different booths out in the other area, we want you to do that before you're done tonight. Also, we have an online survey currently. We're just asking for people's input. It's important for us to hear from you and from other members of our community so that we understand what the priorities are from your perspectives. We don't anticipate to have all the answers, so we need to hear from the community to create this new plan out to 2050. So it's very important. We will then take basically the rest of this year to really develop out some scenarios and develop our policies, build off of what we have in the current plan, and then make it better. make it more applicable out to 2050. And so what we will then do is go into 2021 actually, and create the plan at that point, and then it'll go through an approval process. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for public input, and we would definitely want you to remain engaged with us. So a big part of that is that we have many different levels of involvement. We have a community committee, we have a staff committee, we're going to have public open houses like this, we're going to have an online presence. So it's very important to make sure that you are using your networks to get the word out to others and to make sure everyone's voice is being heard. It's extremely important for the success of this planning effort. A big part of this effort is we have created a website. It is going to be important to make sure that we get as many people looking at that. We're going to have content out there throughout the process. Some of you have been there. We have over 500 completed surveys. That's where that survey lives right now. And we're going to keep that survey live for about another month or so. You'll see the live results out in the other room as you go back out there. Again, that's another tool to try to get that input, and we're going to be doing some other examples of that. We will also be putting all of our updated information on upcoming meetings and what content was discussed at past meetings, and we'll make sure that you can stay up to speed on this. So